welcome to Critical Junction episode 37. I'm Mark.
Oh, hi, Mark.
I'm Luke.
I'm Jill.
And from stigmata, or the sudden appearance of the wounds of Christ is said to have suffered during his crucifixion, to the apparition of Jesus or the Virgin Mary as a potato chip, miracles are often seen by theists, especially those of the Christian variety, as proof positive of the existence of their particular god. Take, for example, the so-called Miracle of the Sun in Fatima, Portugal, when in 1917, 3 children aged 7, 9, and 10 claimed to have encountered the Virgin Mary while on their way back home after tending a flock of sheep. As the story goes, Mary told the children she would visit them on the 13th day for the following 6 months and then disappeared. Fast forward to October of the same year to Mary's final appearance, where some 70,000 people claim to have seen the sun overhead spin, zigzag, or otherwise dance in the sky. Also consider the earlier apparition of the Virgin Mary to one Bernadette Soubirous, a 14-year-old peasant girl. In 1858, in the grotto of Massabielle near Lourdes, France, Mary delivered a message to Bernadette, quote, "Pray and do penance for the conversion of the world," end quote. Thereafter, pilgrims to the supposed holy site are said to have been cured of all manner of ailments. In the case of the miracle of the sun, we can safely say the sun did not deviate from its position at the center of our solar system. Our planet would have suffered catastrophically if it had. What we can't say with any degree of certainty is what the witnesses did see, though there are competing theories as to what it may have been, though it stands to reason that a bunch of people staring at the sun with the naked eye could very well have led to any number of visual disturbances. As to the supposed miracle healings at Lourdes, the answer is much simpler and far more plausible. Illnesses can and do spontaneously go into remission, a perfectly natural occurrence that in no way indicates divine intervention.
It's called an immune system, people.
The point is, even if we admit it, and we do, that people experienced something at Fatima and Lourdes, how does that constitute evidence for the existence of a god? The best we can say is, if the cause remains a mystery, then we simply do not know what the cause is. It's a fallacy to think that just because something mysterious happened, that therefore a god did it, or even exists in the first place. Let's talk about that.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Let's.
So, which of us three is a believer in miracles?
A believer?
Yeah.
I was thinking about this, and I was thinking that it would be contrary to belief because they're miracles. You're in a sense, you're not supposed to believe in them. But if ever one were to occur, you wouldn't be a believer in them. It would have occurred, and it would be a reality to you. So it has nothing to do with.
Okay, you mean casting belief in the sense of belief being knowing something to be true without having actually the
experience of it.
The experience of it,
Right.
or without having the justification for believing
Right.
believing it to be true, for
Okay.
knowing it to be true.
I can't say that I believe in miracles, and I don't know if we're defining miracles. Like we would have to pull back a little bit.
Yeah, like
Pull my penis out here. Let's define.
Well,
what
I like to.
What
I
does
like
your
to. I like
penis
to
have
use.
to do with definitions?
I like to use
It's
David.
a miracle, Jill. Tell me.
I like to use David Hume's definition of a miracle, which is a violation of the laws of nature. Pretty simply.
Ah. Okay. Well, see,
Or a
because we were attributing
suspension
it.
of
Of the laws of nature.
the laws of nature.
And as far as we know, well, as far as we can say, nothing is really capable of violating the laws of nature, them being the laws of nature. Like with the sun thing, for example, that I was mentioning earlier, the sun doesn't move. Well, it moves through space and, like, and all that. But it, like, from our perspective, the sun doesn't dance around in the sky because that would indicate that the sun were moving from its position at the center of the solar system.
Right.
And if that had happened, we probably wouldn't be here to talk about it.
Okay, but let's just say we're there and we do see the sun dancing around. Now, would we then therefore declare, I saw the sun dancing around?
You can,
I can
say that, right? But what you can't say is it must be a God thing, because that's a classic argument for
Hold on,
ignorance
though.
fallacy.
The Hume removes it from God. He's just saying a violation of nature. So in a sense, he's just taking it to the unexplained.
Right, but when believers come into the picture, they would attribute that to an act of God, because it's the only entity that they, say is capable of violating
God
or
of the gas.
suspending the laws.
What I'm getting at here, though, is that in today's discussion, how are we defining it? Like, if you're asking me, do you believe in miracles? Right away I go, well, I don't believe in it, but I'm open to the possibility of it. But I'm just saying that I am open to witnessing something that appears to violate the nature of what we understand reality to be, sort of thing. Like, I guess my problem with miracles or whatever is that it assumes that we, contrast to that, have some sort of a well-defined substance of things, and it's still very open, like in terms of how we understand things, right? Like,
well, yes and no. I mean, there are things that we understand as, as just being natural laws or laws of physics or whatever other, naturalistic explanation you have for a given event or a given phenomenon.
Yeah.
To answer your question, do I believe in miracles? Well, if I were to take the definition that Hume gives us, then I would say no. Because I haven't seen evidence for anything that's capable of violating or suspending the laws of nature, right? Like if I were to experience something, then I would say I saw something, but I don't know what the cause of that something may have been.
right.
And
You
that
would
require,
call it a miracle.
no, I wouldn't call it. I'd say I saw something weird that happened.
Yeah.
Right, and that would require further investigation and objective verification of what it is that I saw and what possible explanations are. And like, the point is, like, you have to, in order to say that something was miraculous or something violated the laws of nature, you first need to eliminate every other possible explanation for that thing. You can't just make that leap in logic and say, hey, look, God did this. Argument from ignorance. Like, what else could it possibly have been? Well, we don't know that. We have to. That's why it would require further examination to come up with what else it could have been. And once you eliminate that, then you start narrowing the field a little bit.
Yeah. So unexplained and unexplainable can't just be taken as synonymous with God.
Right.
So actually, doesn't that mean that the concept of miracles can never be validated? Because even the unexplainable, like even what we can never explain, can't be ascribed to God.
Because then if it's something we can never explain, then we can never explain it, and just inserting the panacea of God is fallacious.
No, that's just wishful thinking.
Okay, well let's
Magical
for this conversation remove God from the picture, and let's focus on the definition via Hume.
How can we remove God from miracle claims if we're talking about, like, miracles being evidence for God as some
One nifty little tidbit, little piece of trivia is that the word miracle never appears in the Bible.
Oh yeah?
Even though it's a completely Christian religion bound concept, the word just doesn't appear in the Bible.
So when Jesus turns the water into wine,
those aren't called miracles.
They're not called miracles? What are they referring to it as?
Something Jesus did.
Yeah, I guess they're just described as divine or whatever, but the word miracle just isn't used there.
I see.
Does anyone know where the first instance of the word miracle comes
I
from?
I don't.
The history of the word miracle, like its first origin.
The etymology of the word miracle.
I'm not sure.
Not sure either. Should have looked that up.
Well, okay, so do you see my problem, though, in that we would have to, in a sense, feel like we've wrapped up the entire science of the world as a concrete thing, and then deviations from it, right? So what I'm getting at is that the three of us can see something unexplained, and we're not going to go, oh, fuck, that's God. We're just going to go, holy shit, what the fuck is that?
Yeah,
Exactly.
what is that?
What the fuck is that? And I think that's the more interesting question: is what the fuck is that? Because then that spurs you.
It opens the door rather than closing one.
Right, exactly. Because as soon as you say, "Well, it's God," then you close the conversation. You can't have like a rational discussion or a rational investigation.
Well, what's to investigate?
Right.
We're touching on like some postmodernism ideas, and I'm going to I mean, there's I can't remember what her name is. I believe she's a linguist, Lucy Erigiri. I never know how to pronounce people because I've self-educated myself and I haven't gone to class and heard this name in class kind of thing. But she is a neo-Freudian person. This idea of openness, of looking at the future and being open and prepared for the unexpected, the unexplainable, and being able to, in a sense, take it in and do something to process it. Right. Like, I do think that psychologically...
Being psychologically reconciled with ambiguity and uncertainty.
Yeah. There's an element of, and I don't know if you've ever experienced this before, when if your mind isn't prepared for something, you can't process it. And now this can like, when it comes to more emotionally damaging things, we can say that this kind of a thing occurs. But I have had these experiences in my past where something occurs and it takes me forever to even process it in my mind that it occurred.
So there's sort of a paradox there where it seems like this is implying that the concept of miracles could be a method that was arrived at for doing that, for being able to process something unexplained, right? But at the same time, it actually cuts you off from actually being able to understand what that thing is, because you immediately ascribe the label of God to it, and then you cease any investigation of what it actually is, or...
It could, yeah. If you do end there, it's the wall, the God wall, that I think we brought this up in another subject before, where God is used to just close something off and go, no, it's just God.
It stops the conversation dead in its tracks. Like, for the Catholic Church is, whenever someone has a miracle claim, the Church is pretty thorough, quote unquote, with their investigation, because they don't just accept anything as being miraculous. I don't know what their criteria are for determining whether or not something is in fact a miracle from God, but they only recognize certain things. Like that, I think that's both to their benefit and to their detriment, because like they have at their end goal the objective of attributing God to what it is that they're investigating, or saying no, it's not a miracle from God; it's just something that happened. So I applaud their investigative powers, or their desire to investigate, but having that end goal of therefore God isn't the way to go about it. If they were doing a more scientific or objective investigation of these things, I would be a lot happier. But as it stands, they're just trying to validate their own belief system, right? And I don't know where I was going with that.
Well, that goes against basically what Popper kind of taught us about how to do science properly, which is you're not supposed to be going in there trying to confirm a bias. Right. I mean, that's that on its face. We all understand that's a fallacy. Mm-hmm. What the job of science is never to actually confirm, but to actually falsify, right. to try and prove how something isn't.
Yeah, and that's right. My problem with a lot of these miracle claims.
And if you can't, then...
Yeah, some of them are unfalsifiable, and therefore, you can't really say with any... an unfalsifiable idea is just a leap of faith. And it's not really worth much, in my opinion.
Yeah. If it can neither be proved or disproved, then it just remains an open-ended non-issue, and it's... And it's useless. By definition, it's useless. Mm-hmm. There's no use for it.
Should we talk about the miracle or supposed miracles of the Bible, or do we want to?
Well, I'm interested in this Bible where the kids had a crowd, basically, of how many people? Like
70,000.
70,000 people.
The number varies between 70,000 to like 100,000 plus, but it's in the double-digit thousands, and they all claim to have seen the sun behaving weirdly in the sky, like. The reason they were looking up there in the first place is because the kids said that during the Virgin's final appearance, she would display some kind of sign and everyone would believe what was going on.
Right.
And, one of the kids was like, hey, look up at the sky, and everyone just kind of looked up at the fucking sun for, I don't know how long they were staring at this thing, but they looked at the fucking sun with their
I'm also thinking if it is moving around, you are going to look and you are going to notice, and other people are going to go, hey buddy, like check it out, sun's moving around, kind of
right.
thing. So if something weird's happening, people are going to notice.
Yeah, and
or what's happening is that you've got a few thousand fanatics that are standing around with bated breath, staring at the sky and staring at the sun, and eventually something happens to your eyes when you stare directly at the sun.
See, that's what I was getting at. Like, have you ever?
And not only that, but if you're fanatical and you're waiting with bated breath, then what you're doing is you're again waiting for something to confirm your bias. So anything that happens, that's a miracle.
Well, here the collectivity.
There we go. There's the sign.
The collectivity and the. What seems to be several people, like there's a name for this phenomenon where several people, like a group,
it's the bandwagon effect.
Not only that, no, you're talking about
group
like
psychosis or
mass
something?
hysteria and,
Right,
and
mass
group
hysteria, where
psychosis or
mass illusions,
Yeah.
or what do you call it, mass
hallucinations.
hallucinations and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's pretty interesting stuff to
Yeah,
think.
like the bigger
That exists.
the bigger
Yeah,
the
yeah.
crowd, the more likely every member of that crowd is to agree with something if everyone else is agreeing to that thing.
Yeah,
I think it's a pretty common
But
psychological
there's a difference
event.
between agreeing, just like standing out in the hallway and no one ever checks the door handle of the classroom, so no one ever walks in, and then the prof shows up late and he goes, "Why didn't anyone walk in?" And he just opens up the door and everyone just assumed it was locked. Like, there's a difference between everyone seeing
But
the same
people
thing.
also aren't conceiving of these hallucinations or whatever in a vacuum,
Yeah.
spontaneously.
They're confirming each
individually.
other's.
They're all subject to suggestion
Right.
from each other, right?
And they're all confirming what the other person
Yeah.
is seeing, and then they think they're seeing it too. Like there's this social experiment that I kind of conducted a little while ago, where you go downtown, right, just to a really crowded street corner, and you look up at a random point, either at a building or in the sky or something, and like look in awe at whatever it is that you're pretending to see, and try to notice how many people will join you and look up in awe too. It's really
yeah.
like I got a crowd of like maybe 5 or 6 people who were like, "Oh my god, what
This is what you do with your time, Mark? This is what you do?
did?" Don't do that anymore. It was kind of funny at the time, but like it was a really interesting social experiment to see how many people just join the bandwagon because a couple of other people are doing the same thing.
And we do.
We do, yeah. And
Because you also have to deal with FOMO, right?
right,
Nobody wants to miss out,
the fear of missing out.
Oh, I see.
So people are like kind of primed to want to see something even if they don't, right?
Yeah, and with the Fatima quote unquote miracle of the sun thing, they were one of the issues I have with this particular miracle is that not everybody saw the same thing, and there were people who didn't see anything at all. So if it were a genuine occurrence, you would think
That all 70,000 of them would have agreed.
Well, hold
Right.
on. You would think it's something that's defying logic already, and we're applying rules of
No,
logic
like,
on it. I mean,
it's not the defiance of logic that I'm interested in confirming. If something had happened, if something objective had happened, then the individual stories would line up more than they do in this case. Because the accounts are widely varied. There are people who didn't see anything. There's some people who saw one thing. Someone next to them saw something completely different. And the stories are all an amalgam of different things.
Right.
And
then the emerging popularity of this story
it's self-propagating.
Right.
Yeah. After the fact, it propagated. There was an article written in the local newspaper about it. And one of the other things that really kind of bothers me about some of these miracles is a lot of them just tend to happen in small towns or remote villages or something where there's very little chance of independent verification of what happened. Usually people are less educated in these remote areas, and therefore they're more subject to wishful thinking or magical thinking, and they apply that to an unknown phenomenon because they have no other frame of reference to explain it, right? And that's how we get these claims of miracles.
One thing I find funny about the miracle concept as a religious notion is that it seems like it's self-defeating. So the idea is that a miracle is something that God does to reveal himself undeniably. But the whole idea of religious faith is that you need to come to it, and humans need to come to faith in Jesus without getting any proof. So God is going in and giving supposedly proof for something that he's supposed to withhold for anybody's like for the journey of anybody's soul to actually complete its course. Like the soul is supposedly given freedom to either choose God or not, and so that's where you get your heaven and hell.
And
Those
that's why
who fail to actually choose God without needing the proof for it and fail to actually have the faith in it.
And that's why a lot of Christian
eternal
apologists...
separation from God. And
That's why a lot of Christian apologists will say that's the reason why God doesn't reveal himself to everybody, because he can't influence or interfere with human free will and our individual decisions to come.
So what was he
He's
thinking?
got the
He was
prime
just
directive
thinking,
going.
fuck those souls when he did it in the past with the people that he did do it with?
That's why I take issue with Christian apologetics.
Sorry, what were you saying, Luke?
Oh, that God follows the prime directive.
Doesn't interfere with pre-warp civilizations. Yeah.
God is the United Federation of Planets.
Tell that to the Bajorans.
Wow.
Sure, they'd love that.
This is going real geeky real quick.
yeah, we went Geekville. Here we come. It's a miracle.
Hallelujah. Have either of you witnessed anything supposedly miraculous?
I was sort of going through my mind in terms of thing that is unexplained phenomenon, and I guess I'd have to go back to seeing the lights in the sky, the alien stuff, like
Right, your
that.
UFO again?
Yeah, my UFO thing. Sure.
Okay.
So that defies the laws of what I understand as science, right? I was seeing lights travel across the sky, impossibly, And it is a weird thing to look back upon, because basically there I need the other person that I saw it with to go, we saw that, right?
Right.
Years on down the line, and then her going, yeah, let's shut up about it. Like she doesn't want to talk about it. But yes, it does seem to be the case that we are in agreement. We seem to have seen this.
So do you think it was God or aliens?
Well, yeah, no. To me, thinking of something like aliens, that is in amongst the workings of science and what we understand of the universe.
Or skunkworks.
It makes sense that there is other life out in the universe.
Yeah,
there is life in the universe.
I say that jokingly, but I think I'm offhandedly touching on another point here, is that if you remove the religious aspect from someone's frame of reference and you introduce an unexplained phenomenon like the thing you're seeing, let's say it's someone who has no concept of God whatsoever, and they see these lights in the sky behaving weirdly like you did, and their only frame of reference is modern science fiction or other alien abduction accounts or whatever. They'll apply that frame of reference to what they see, and they'll say it was
they'll
aliens.
project it or map it over what they see to make sense of it.
So the unexplainable, or the weird things some people see in these remote locations that I was talking about earlier, their only frame of reference is religious. So they're using that as their explanation, whereas someone else may say it has to be aliens because that's what else could it be?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the language we use defines the way we think.
It's not only the language;
the
it's also the environment we find ourselves in to a large extent.
Right.
That influences our definition of things.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, we can only work with what we've been exposed to, in a sense.
Right.
Regurgitate what we already have and expand upon what we already have, sort of thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
When you look at one kind of miracle is like when somebody looks at their life and then looks at a particular point in their past and says, okay, at that point in the past, like something happened, and like me tripping on the sidewalk is what caused me to meet this other person or miss the bus that day or something. And then because I missed the bus, then I got this job, and all of this stuff happened. So that coincidental thing that happened on that one day, that remarkable thing, that must have been a miracle.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Or an even more concrete example than that would be someone who, let's say a drug addict or whatever, they find Jesus and they pray for salvation, and they find themselves dropping their addiction, and they say, oh my God, it's a miracle. I prayed to Jesus, I'm no longer addicted to heroin. Right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you know you just didn't apply your own willpower to getting off the addiction, right? It's that post hoc ergo propter hoc fallacy. It's, I prayed and then this happened, so the cause must be this.
Yeah. I mean, another thing about that, though, is that there's this assumption that the current state of affairs that you're satisfied with or something is what ought to be, right? Like kind of like that whole is ought fallacy there, which is also from Hume, I think. Isn't it?
Yeah, I think you're right.
And anyway, so like what you're doing, you're saying that what is should be, but if you hadn't experienced that supposed miracle in the past, a whole nother set of circumstances would have happened, and you might have been satisfied with that set of circumstances at some point.
It presupposes that some other thing is less than what that. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's there's assumptions there for sure.
Yeah. Exactly. So the idea of something being a miracle is just kind of nonsensical, because basically any kind of event that can be seen as sort of fortuitous, I mean, if it happened otherwise, it could be just as much of a supposed miracle leading to something completely different. So, like, in what sense is it divinely? Is it necessarily a divine intervention? I don't know.
The truth is, if we were to look at let's say,
I mean, yeah. So go ahead.
I was just going to say, if we looked upon the world or being, let's say, as a miracle,
Yeah.
there would be nothing outside of that. I could make the claim there is only miracles.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's no outside of that.
So,
just
like,
I could go, this is all God. There's
Right.
nothing outside of it. So how would we, cells inside the
Well,
body?
yeah.
What
So
is this?
like another like kind of wrong aspect to this whole thing is that it kind of views everything as kind of leading to a specific thing.
Like an
Like that the
outcome?
whole that teleology
yeah.
kind
You're
of
right.
perspective.
And the assumption that we know what is supposed to be is in itself the error that we're making, especially if we're taking into consideration God, which is mystery. Like, basically, we're defining mystery.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny that is what religion is doing.
Yeah.
They're
Well, it's like
ruining
it's like
themselves.
saying that everything happens for a reason. That kind of it discounts that anything can just happen because of what happened before, or like.
Well, I like to make the argument that everything does happen for a reason, but that reason is
But-
everything leading up to that decision.
the laws of causality kind of thing.
yeah,
Right. It's happening for a reason.
Right.
'cause-
The reason is like
No. Yeah, but that's like that different and opposite question that can be asked in exactly the same way. It's like saying why versus how come.
right.
Right? Like why is this? And do you want the answer to be because something later has to happen with this happening, or is it because a bunch of things before that led to that happening?
Because a bunch of things happened before that.
Right,
It's
right.
causality.
But I mean, by saying everything happens for a reason, you're kind of for some end, right? You're kind of saying that nothing has inherent value, right? Like nothing that's currently happening has any value of its own. It's only to serve
The ultimate outcome or
some.
whatever. Yeah. I think this touches a little bit on determinism versus non-determinism in a bit of a way, I guess. I'm undecided on the question of whether everything is determined. I mean, like, I kind of do buy into that determinism thing and the absence of free will. I'm going to call it macro determinism because there are some quantum events that are just completely random as far as we can tell, which kind of throws the idea of the universe being determined into disarray a little bit. But for the most part, I would tend to agree with that. Like I said, everything happening for a reason being prior causation leading up to a given decision or a given event, a given outcome. So the concept of a miracle would also fly in the face of that kind of determinism, because it would be an interference of those prior causes to interject a different outcome than what it was originally leading to. And whether or not that's possible, I don't know. I would argue not. because we can't. How do you investigate an outside divine intervention as a cause for an event? How do you explore God? How do you determine or come to the conclusion that what you witnessed is the result of some kind of suspension or interference with the laws of nature and the laws of causality and the laws of determinism?
Well, right. You can't actually determine that unless you feel or think that you know all the laws already, which we don't. And also these laws may be malleable, and there's more to these laws, and there's just always more. So,
well, that's the point. It's not falsifiable,
right? And that's something I take issue with. It's that, yeah.
Well, this doesn't change the idea, though, that if you were to see something that you couldn't explain,
then I can't explain it.
That you can't explain it, and you wouldn't call it a miracle.
Of course not. No.
Yeah.
I would say I witnessed something unexplained. If I feel the drive to do so, I'll investigate it further, and if I reach a conclusion based on, just different evidence, then so be it. But if it remains unexplained, it'll remain unexplained, and I won't therefore interject with, well, it has to be God.
Right.
Or
it's true that it's attributed. It's a word that has an attributing factor from our perspective. Like, we have to label it. Not only I can't explain it, but I can't explain it, and so I give it to you. Like, it's God's. God is doing this, so we're endowing it with.
Yeah, I think, like, from the theist's point of view, they're really uncomfortable with uncertainty. So admitting that, well, I don't know what the cause is, just doesn't sit well with them. How can you not know? Like, it has to be God.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't have to be anything. Like, why are you so uncomfortable with admitting you don't know what the cause of something is? Right? Why is ignorance so?
No, you're right. It's
disturbing?
It's this seeking of solidness, like the grasping for something that's just concrete and doesn't change. Please, anything, you know. And we can probably understand that this is where a lot of religious fanatics are coming from.
Yeah,
they're scared.
They're scared. Like that's why they don't like the concept of the malleability or the refining of the scientific method. Some scientific theories are constantly changing to accommodate new evidence. And that's just, well, science is always changing, so how can it be certain about anything?
Well, it's not the science itself that's changing.
No,
it's our understanding of it.
Yeah, and it's the theory
it's our
that's
mapping
changing.
of it. Yeah, right.
It's the content that the science is being applied to that's changing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so have you guys ever seen anything that you couldn't explain? That we could, if we were religious, go, a miracle?
I've been wanting to for as long as I can remember. Like, I've wanted to see a UFO, I've wanted to see a haunting, I've wanted to see a miracle, I've wanted to see all of these things, but I never have.
Right.
Never. And for when I was a believer, I was questioning whether or not I was believing hard enough, and that's why I wasn't seeing anything. I wasn't getting any proof of God, even though I prayed fervently for him to appear before me and tell me what my life's purpose was, that kind of thing. But
then it seems to me if you have a direct experience, then you're knowing. It's no longer belief. I now know God rather than believe God.
Well, we say we know things as a result of being convinced of that thing.
Right.
And
so belief would suggest you're not exactly convinced.
Yeah.
And so you're still pittering around believing rather than knowing. Kind of
right.
thing?
I think so.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
But yeah, like, I've never witnessed anything miraculous. The closest I think I've told this story before, was my prophetic dream of the announcement of Pope Benedict.
Oh yeah, right. Okay, yes. And I have had dreams where, in a sense, I'm seeing something that I will see. Like I seem to have had dreams that reveal the future.
Right.
Like, dreams seem to be not,
or that in hindsight seem
to.
Right.
I can't be sure. And I have no one else to refer to go, did that really happen?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So I am left in question going, am I completely insane? And the answer is always, of course. But yes, I do seem to have met people in my dreams before I meet them in real life, to the point where I recognize them. Like, holy fuck, there's that hat that I had a dream about. And for some reason, it always has to do with the person's hair or, like, the head.
The hair thing, yeah.
We've brought this up before.
We have brought that up before. Like, I had a dream that after I met my wife, I could say that figure in my dream does fit with what my wife looked like after I met her.
By the way, Gilles' wife is in the audience today, so how's it going?
Clapping is never good when I'm
Yeah, but I mean, it's such a vague criteria, right? Like it's not like I fully knew the person in my dream and knew all of their features and everything. It's just like this one kind of thing, and then you wonder, like, okay, from there on after, am I looking for someone with that kind of hair or something? Or
Like I'm thinking of when I met Valerie, the person for whom I live with now. Whom you live now. Wow. With. I think I said that wrong. But I had a dream. I had a dream. In the dream, it was someone with very long black hair with a gray streak through it.
Okay.
And then
but to be fair, that could apply to a lot of people.
Sure. But I'm just saying, I'm at the bar. I'm drinking alone because I'm sad. and there was a girl beside me who I'm getting this feeling from, and it makes me go, oh, for fuck's sakes, I don't want to look. Like, I don't want to even acknowledge this kind of thing. And sure enough, it's like I recognize her when I see her. And it has the same feeling as in the dream, the encounter that I had with the dream. When I met her in the dream, it had this real sense of, oh, hey. Like a very casual feeling to it.
Did you say it in that
like voice? A familiarity?
A familiarity, but not only a familiarity, but that there's no problem here. There's no complication here. And that's like the resonating feeling of our entire relationship, sort of thing, you know. And in the dream itself was a dream where I'm seeing the faces of all the women that I will love in the history of my life, kind of thing. And then it ends on her. Oh, hey. You know, much more casual than the other ones.
Did you feel the hand of God pushing you in that direction?
Well, I mean, if we were to look at it, and if I believed in God, honestly, it wouldn't take very much for a miracle. I would go, oh my God, I can't believe more people don't die driving. Like, having met the people that I've met in the world, it seems to be a miracle that we don't all die in car crashes. Like, people
the traffic works as well as it does.
I can't believe
we all talk about traffic
amazing,
being like the biggest killer and that being the number one problem, but at the same time...
But still, there should be more accidents.
There should be more. Yeah.
Like, we have met these people. I've worked retail and I have served these people, and they are fucking retarded. You know,
yeah,
like people can't even. People can't. I don't understand how people are still alive, let alone driving and not killing people.
Okay, that's another thing that I take issue with when it comes to miracles. Is it devalues our own capacity to do shit properly.
Right.
Like, let's say Sully landing the plane in the Hudson. You know. Oh my God, it's a miracle. No, the pilot is fucking great.
He was great.
Yeah.
He was a great pilot, and he saved your lives. Or like someone coming out of a really complex operation. Like, oh my God, it's a miracle I survived. No, the doctor went to school for 10 years to save your sorry ass. Like, sorry, it diminishes our capacity to do shit really, really well.
Yeah.
Like, I have a real problem with that. Like, especially when it comes to the doctor thing. Like, thank the fucking doctor who saved your life, man. Seriously.
I mean, speaking of undermining people's personal responsibility, there's that whole concept of thoughts and prayers, right? Like where basically what you're doing is you're trying to invoke divine intervention, right? In other words, you're trying to invoke a miracle.
Yeah, the thoughts and prayers thing. Like,
I want to pray and hope that God deigns to inflict a miracle on
inflict a miracle
on this.
Sending down lightning bolts of miracles.
Like, it gives people that immediate sense of self-gratification. Like,
that's it.
I said thoughts and prayers. I feel so good about myself for praying to God. Did you actually do anything?
That's it. It's like a worthless alternative to actually helping, right?
Instead of sending thoughts and prayers, how about sending some blood? You know, when it comes to terrorist attacks or something, or like a mass shooting, like blood donors needed. Yeah. Thoughts and prayers.
As long as you're not gay, though, right?
Well, yeah, it's a
then
different.
You can't donate blood.
Yeah.
Although the thought occurred to me though that this idea of invoking miracles and with the thoughts and prayers kind of it can be redeemed, I guess, as a way of having these people kind of train themselves in empathy, right? Because they are psychologically kind of devoting some positive thought to somebody else's plight, right?
But to what extent? Because as soon as you send the thoughts and prayers post on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, most people just wash their hands of it. Like, I did something good. There's a minute amount of empathy in that case. And, and then they walk away and change their profile picture.
I mean, insofar as it's possible that somebody can be sincere in their whole like endeavor of investing thoughts and prayers in somebody else's plight, I mean, they could be kind of teaching themselves whatever empathy is necessary to actually motivate yourself to get involved and actually help. Right?
Maybe. I don't know. Like,
we also don't know what the alternative is. If let's say we didn't have any religions at all, how terrible would mankind be? We don't know. Like, maybe things would be way worse. Maybe it has acted as a great crutch throughout the history of our evolution.
I was listening to that based on Gilles' suggestion yesterday. I was listening to a clip of a talk that Christopher Hitchens was giving, and that came up, the idea of what if there were no religion? Would we be better off or worse off? And people are only as good as they're able to be, right? If you leave a bunch of good people together, they will most likely do good, whereas wicked people will just do something wicked because that's who they are and that's what they'll do. So,
well, this is assuming that a person is a solid thing. I mean, I can't back up any of that a person would only do what they would do with the... How did you phrase that?
Like, a person will only do as much good as they are good, kind of thing, right? They'll only exercise that capacity to the extent to which they're able, right? Like, if someone is a psychopath and they're left untreated, they will just be a psychopath. If someone wants to do good in the world and they're driven to do that, they'll do whatever they can to do good, right?
To me, this is coming at an individual as if they're a solid thing. It doesn't seem to make sense to me. It's like an athlete can't do better than how he's doing. No, he could get better.
Well, eventually you'll reach your maximum. Like with the example of an athlete, you'll reach your maximum potential. Like, you can't go beyond a certain point.
Yeah. Sure.
That's the only thing I'm trying to say.
Oh, okay. But still, this is unknown. We don't know what I don't know how fast I could possibly run if I trained and practiced running.
No, you don't. And that's not the point. The point is you reach a maximum potential.
Right.
You're never going to be able to run at light speed.
No.
So there being a limit means that there is some kind of solidness.
If I were to run while being sucked into a black hole, I could then therefore...
That's not how that works.
No, that's not.
You're not running at light speed. You're moving at light speed while doing the running motion.
Eventually, time will slow down and you'll just get...
Like, for example, if we were to find out later on in terms of physics that our universe is traveling within a larger universe at the speed of light, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm running. Yeah. Then therefore I'm running at the speed of light.
Yeah, in kind of a sophist sense, you're running at
I'm just saying, it is possible.
What I mean is
I could run at the speed of light.
Is that, like, relative to yourself, you're not moving your legs at light speed. Right, because physically that's impossible.
You're moving relative.
That would violate the laws of physics.
Hold on. I just did it and you didn't notice it was so fast. How could you know?
That's right.
I just ran home, came back.
Yeah. Your legs are Russell's teapot.
It's a new axiom. Luke's legs.
Luke's legs are Russell's teapot.
Yeah. What was your earlier question? Something I don't know how we got off on this tangent. I don't want to touch on the miracles of the Bible at all because they're really hard to investigate and there's no independent verification or objectively demonstrable evidence to back up that, like Jesus rising from the dead or whatever after a long weekend. Thanks for that sacrifice. Stayed dead for a couple of days, then came back. Awesome. Why not just stay dead? I think that would have been a more worthy sacrifice, but that's a whole other story. Yeah, we can't verify miracles that are supposed to have taken place in the Bible, so that can't qualify as evidence for the existence of God, despite what some Christians, and especially Christian apologists, would argue in favor of. Right? That's one of the things I hear a lot from Christians, because I like getting into these debates with theists and Christians, especially online, because it's really fun to do. Well, Jesus performed all these miracles in the Bible, therefore he has to be God. Okay, can you demonstrate the validity of the miracles in the Bible that you're advocating for? No, didn't think so. Using the Bible to prove the Bible is circular and nonsensical. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even if they could prove that each and every one of those miracles actually happened,
Still doesn't get you to
still
God.
can't prove that it's because of God.
So you seem to enjoy having conversation or debates, as you call it, with people
let's
that
say
you
conversations. I said debates earlier, but I like conversations better. Mostly one-sided conversations on my part.
You've never had any luck, in a sense,
I don't do
making your point, and then
I make my point, but I don't do it. I don't do it to convert them.
Well, have you ever had anyone acknowledge, that you're right, kind of thing, or
A couple of times.
yeah?
I backed someone into a corner once, and people argue well, you're backing me into a corner. That's the point. You're supposed to get cornered so that you can defend your position. I've had some people be like, you're right, I can't explain that. Well, there you go, but I'm still going to believe. Fuck.
Well, right, because it is the jump.
Yeah.
Because I can't explain it, pow, I'm just going to believe.
Right,
there's nothing you can do, I'm just going to believe.
Yeah, I don't have these conversations.
Yeah, the best is when you ask, is there anything I could say or any kind of evidence that could be presented to you that would change your mind about what you currently believe about your faith or whatever.
Yeah.
And I love it when they say no.
Right.
But they've decided.
I don't engage in these conversations to change their mind. I do it for the people on the sidelines who might be watching, listening, reading,
who are more
who
so
are
undecided.
undecided.
Okay,
Right.
I see. You're representing the other side, the other angle, the other perspective.
I do it so that they can look at what I presented in contrast with what the other side is presenting and make their own conclusions. Because I'd like to think that I'm presenting things in a rational and logical way to get people to question their own beliefs. Right? I'm not doing it for the sake of the person.
To get people to dismantle their beliefs.
To question, right? To critically examine what it is they believe and why, right? Because it's the why thing that seems to be the stumbling block for a lot of people.
Why or how come?
What? Why? Why do you believe that? What's the cause, or what's the root of your belief?
Well,
and can you validate that?
I think you're touching on something there that I try to investigate within myself, and basically, I'd like to be able to go through life where if anyone were to ask me, "Hey Luke, why did you do that? Hey Luke, why are you thinking that?" that I can tell them, and it's actually very difficult. And often you do hit a wall and go, "You know what? I'm not sure. I don't know why I just said that, or I don't know why I'm thinking this in particular." It's difficult to know yourself so well that you can go back and go this because of this and see the causality of your entire personality.
Yeah.
Kind of thing,
No, it is very difficult, and it requires a lot of self-exploration and introspection to a degree, right? I think it's a healthy thing to do that, to say, well, admitting you don't know why you believe something is, in my opinion, a step in the right direction, because it gets you to further examine why it is you believe that. Once you hit that stumbling block, then you're able to further refine your internal model of reality to the point where you can discard as many false beliefs as possible and accumulate as many true beliefs as you can, and make sure that your own internal reality is as close to objective reality as possible. And that's something I strive to do with all of my beliefs. There are beliefs I've discarded in the past because they just didn't make sense anymore, and I found them to be incompatible with reality, right? If that was true of Christianity, that was true of a lot of my superstitious leanings. At one point, I was a staunch advocate of the existence of aliens and UFOs and things. I was more apt to believe in things like Bigfoot or whatever, but upon closer inspection, I found there was little evidence to support those beliefs, so I tossed them out. And if it so happens that I find evidence to support those things...
Hold on. when you say toss them out,
I just no longer advocate for that belief.
but you don't necessarily not believe.
Not necessarily. I'm ambivalent. I don't know.
You take the agnostic approach.
Yeah, like if we're saying, if we define
Pragmatically, though, it means that for practical purposes, you're not acting in a way that goes on the assumption that they do exist.
Exactly.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Like
Right?
if
So it basically is identical to believing that they don't exist. Not believing that they do exist is identical to believing that they don't exist.
Well, it's neither though.
Yeah,
It's neither believing nor not believing.
yeah,
Am I correct?
I would tend to agree with you, Luke, on that one. Like it's you're taking that you're not convinced of the existence of something doesn't necessarily mean that you don't believe it exists. It means you just have not been convinced of its existence yet.
Yes, technically, when you're doing like the analysis of it, but when you're talking about what it means for how you actually live your life, there's no actual difference between
Right, yeah,
like
okay.
like
Yeah.
saying you're agnostic or saying that you don't believe.
Well, yeah, saying you're agnostic
It's
is
functionally identical.
Yeah, saying you're agnostic about something is like we define the word agnostic as being related to things in which we believe. So saying I'm not convinced of this thing and therefore I'm agnostic about it is the same pragmatically as saying I don't believe in it.
Yeah.
But I won't make that assertion because then the burden of proof falls on me to demonstrate that it doesn't exist, and that's really difficult to do. And so for all intents and purposes, I just say I'm not convinced of this thing's existence until proven otherwise. Like never mind, I lost my train.
The weird thing with you though, Mark, is that you want to.
Yeah, I do want to.
You want to. Can I say that you want to believe? No, you don't want to believe. You want it to be real.
Yes and no. Like, yeah, sure, I want it to be real. And therefore I would want to believe it to be true.
Well, you wouldn't have to believe it because it would be true. It would be that you know it.
Some people still don't believe in things that are true. Flat earthers, for example, they don't believe the earth is round, although it is.
I can't help but think in this day and age that people are not convinced of themselves. Like, people don't actually move forward believing themselves very well.
What?
I think that in today's modern age, I think that people are not believing themselves.
No, they believe themselves too much.
I don't think that they do.
Like, there's
is
too
what I'm
much
saying.
certitude. There's not enough doubt.
But I think the certitude is a compensation for in actuality not believing themselves.
Well, what do you mean
Now,
by what do you mean by
they may
believe
present
themselves?
You mean there's like a kind of hypocrisy?
A hypocrisy, a cognitive dissonance going on. A person, I feel.
What's the evidence that they don't actually believe what they're certain?
I would say
that they do?
their staunch affirmation of something that they can't prove, for example, is evidence that they don't necessarily.
Wait, say that again?
Their staunch affirmation of something that they can't prove.
Yeah. In a sense, a person. Let's say, let's look at an extremist religious terrorist. You could say is a non-believer in God
The
because
fact that
otherwise
they can't
wouldn't
tolerate,
be threatened.
the fact that they can't tolerate someone not believing what they do
exactly
is an inkling that they feel vulnerable about that belief
and don't actually believe it.
Yeah.
So they're overcompensating in a way?
Overcompensating, yeah, tricking themselves.
I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I think to a certain extent, but I think what you were saying earlier, Gilles, kind of, is kind of accurate. There's too much certitude and not enough doubt. If people were more willing to admit doubt or engage in critical examination of
that's
belief,
it. The doubt is there. They're just not admitting it. They are lying to themselves.
Yeah, that's it.
They are not convinced.
so they don't like to admit their doubt or uncertainty about something.
It's deception about their doubt.
Self-deception.
Self-deception.
Yeah.
And there are, I believe, in a lot of ways, it is almost impossible to avoid. I don't think we necessarily believe a lot of ourselves. What I'm saying is I think that this is a social condition right now in today's world.
What is?
That a person does not necessarily believe themselves in terms of a lot of things. They don't.
Is the problem that they're not that they're not made to have to believe the things that they represent?
Or do you think it's like a disingenuous belief? Like they profess a belief in something while not being convinced of it themselves.
I think it is that. I think it is just to be able to move forward. They would be devastated otherwise.
Yeah,
they're clinging to a solidness that does not exist.
One thing that really bugs me is like this idea that like it doesn't matter what we do as long as we do something. We have to do something or it doesn't matter what you believe as long as you believe something.
Right.
Yeah, what the fuck is that?
Like
Job
what
creation.
The fuck is that?
It doesn't
like,
matter what the job is.
I find that
job
like
creation.
I find that super immoral. I've always thought that was just like morally wrong. Like the idea of abdicating your own reason and conscience and just saying, I give up, I throw up my hands, and then I'm letting myself be used for the end of something that is not proven.
Yeah, I think it's immoral and also
like that,
intellectually dishonest. Like that's a terrible position to hold. Well, you gotta just believe in something. Well, why believe? So you can believe in any number of false things in that case?
Yeah.
Like, why? Like, if you end up believing in something that's equally spurious than the thing that you are, tossing aside, you're still believing in something that's bullshit. I want to believe in something that's real.
It's like that. It's like that old joke. Like, say what you think. Say what you will about the Nazis. At least it's an ethos.
Right. Well, I think of my mom after my dad's death, and my parents were never religious. There was evidence of maybe earlier, before I was born, they were possibly religious. Like there are some crosses around the house and stuff like that, but we never went to church. Or, you know what I mean? I remember my mom buying the children's Bible and trying to read it to me and going, and immediately skipping ahead and going, "What? Barbarians!" and then throwing it like across the room, and I'm going, "What, mommy? What, mommy?" You know.
And so the Lord murdered a bunch of babies.
Yeah. She couldn't believe it, and I'm going like, "What did you think, Mom?" She's like, "Well, I thought they tidied it up, make it a little better, for the kids." I guess not.
What's the children's version of Leviticus supposed to look like? Or like Exodus 21.
I guess she thought, I thought they'd just skip that stuff. I don't know what she was thinking. But what I wanted to get around to
cartoon drawings of people owning slaves and beating them, kind of thing.
After my dad died, and she was having a hard time, and she's sad, there was some mention of God and stuff like that, and immediately I'm going like, "Mom, really? You believe in God?" And she stops me and goes, "I gotta believe in something, all right, to get through this. I'll leave it alone." You know what I mean? Like she even admits, like, it's just for now. I need this right now.
Yeah.
And so it becomes just a crutch. And I do think that these beliefs that we have are just crutches to get us through to whatever we think is going to happen on the other side of that crutch, I guess, like to a better wellness of actually acknowledging reality kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, the unwillingness or the discomfort in acknowledging actual reality, it's a real barrier toward progress. Like if people are willing
progress towards what? What's the progress? Would the progress be truth, like the revealing of the ultimate truth?
I don't know if there is such a thing as an ultimate truth, but it stands in the way of getting to the bottom of an investigation or finding out what an actual cause is, or just living in reality. It's self-deception. People are willing to delude themselves into believing all manner of crazy things. Like when it comes to miracles, people will use unexplained things as a justification for their belief in something that's arguably not true.
Right.
That could have been my closing.
I will use this to continue believing this.
Right.
I saw something blue in the forest. I believe in Smurfs. Kind of thing.
Sure. Weird example, but yes.
Yeah. And it was blueberries, the whole thing.
Yeah, it's always blueberries.
Oh, it's always been blueberries.
Yeah, I mean, it means something that you have to reach for something unexplainable as the only proof for, or the only justification for your believing some other thing that you're trying to justify.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if it would only be more likely that thing you want to believe is true if you didn't have to reach for some completely crazy or some completely unusual thing as a miracle, and you could point to something to a bunch of things that are quite common that justify it, right?
Yeah, like let's say for a moment that God exists. Why would he have to rely on all these mysterious things that don't actually say anything, like miracles and the Virgin Mary appearing to 3 school children. Don't you think, like, if God wanted to reveal himself, they would do it, like, in a way that would be undeniable? Like, if he would just come down, like, yeah, I'm God, fucking worship me or whatever. Like, well, why would he go through the trouble of, like, sending the Virgin Mary down and appearing before 3 kids for 6 months and then making the sun dance in the sky and having everyone not agree with what they saw? It just seems odd to me.
Well, yeah, that goes to what I was saying earlier. Like if his whole goal is to get us to have faith in him without needing some kind of proof, then why would he reveal himself to anybody?
Right.
And if he needs to, if he wants us to know of his existence, and if he wants to reveal himself, quote unquote, doesn't he know that doing it to some small local group of 3 kids is not going to be very convincing to anybody, and is not actually going to reveal him?
Well, we're
himself?
assuming here that it's meant to convince, and we don't necessarily know this. Here, I'm assuming this did actually happen, and it was.
So let's say he's trying to help us come to him or something, or have faith in him. The project, the whole concept of that experiment that he's designing, basically, like let's say this is like a research project or just an industrial enterprise. Let's say
This being the cosmos?
This is my method for trying to help people come to me.
Confusion. That's my method. Confusion.
Well, that's it. You can kind of see on the surface that that's a flawed method. Like that. No, that's wrong, because all you're doing is making people have to choose whether or not they believe some other flawed human, because that's all it is. All he's doing is adding something else to the rumor mill. You know, there's just nothing. There's nothing meaningful in that.
Right.
You know, it's just, like same with putting the miracles in
I thought you were going to end with
book,
same with
right?
pudding.
No. Like none of that is convincing, and therefore none of that is actually useful or actually accomplishing what.
Right. What we think the accomplishment is to be. Right.
So, final thoughts on the issue of miracles?
That was my final thought.
Luke.
Well, I do feel that being is much more the rules of being that we have discovered so far are continuing. Like there are things we don't know, and within that, if we so choose, we could call them miracles, but I don't necessarily call them miracles. The unexplained is not a miracle to me. But what I'd like to hope is that I would be able to even process something that I couldn't, that violated the laws of science. I would hope that I could mentally take it in, kind of thing, if ever I were to encounter it. Because I do think it is very possible that if right now a dinosaur walked across right there in your backyard, it is very possible we would see it and not be able to take it in. Like, we would basically not see it. It would go by and we would not be able to process that. Much like those ships when they first appeared along the horizon, you know, for the what is this? What is the story? Is it like was it Christopher Columbus coming?
Something like that. Yeah,
like the first ships coming, and then like it took the
some Aboriginal population in the New World not seeing the ships from the old world,
and it took the witch doctor, the person that is supposedly attuned to and open to these to the mystery, I guess you could say.
Have you ever heard of cargo cults? Mm-hmm. It kind of reminds me of this story, but it's
like New Guinea.
Yeah, it was a small tribe in some remote location. Might have been New Guinea, but they saw a plane flying overhead and then land, and the explorers took out all this cargo, right? And they were fascinated by what they saw, so they built like replicas of like a control tower and just started like
not knowing what it was.
Yeah, they just
and
engaged in
like
all these
Thatcher
rituals.
wicker kind of mock-ups of a biplane or something like that.
Yeah, and they engaged in all these rituals trying to summon the beast from the sky, which was the plane. They had no concept of how all these things actually worked. They just built a cult around the image that they saw, and like it was,
I think it was because of like World War II or maybe even World War One or something like where like I mean planes were going over the
and they noticed whenever
and sometimes dropping supplies for outposts for military outposts and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but
and they
like,
started
they
noticing when they engaged in these rituals that the planes would drop cargo, so that reinforced their belief in what they were doing, and they just like it's again that post hoc ergo propter hoc fallacy.
Yeah,
I don't know why what you're saying reminded me of that, but there you go, cargo cults. If anyone listening doesn't know about them, look it up. It's really fascinating stuff.
And if cargo cults would like to, what is it,
sponsor
the show, that would be great.
It'd be awesome.
Maybe some cargo pants.
Critical
thinking. Cargo pants.
Some crates full of
cargo
loot.
shorts.
Cargo shorts.
As for myself, I don't know if I really have any final thoughts. I think I've kind of made my position clear throughout the episode, but to recap, just because something unexplained happens doesn't necessarily get you to the existence of a god. The best you can say is something happened, I don't know what it was.
That you can't explain.
Right. Can't explain it. Until you're able to explain it independently and objectively and come up with demonstrable evidence within reality, then you can't make that leap and say what you saw is proof for the existence of God. No matter how strongly you believe in something, that doesn't necessarily translate into making that thing a fact. No amount of belief makes something a fact.
True.
This has been Critical Junction, episode 37. I'm Mark.
I'm Luke.
I'm Jill.
As always, thanks for listening, and until next time, keep thinking critically.
I did not.